Did you ever stop and wonder if you could be related to everyone with your last name?
Just think if you're a Lincoln, how you'd be congratulated if Honest Abe were someone you could claim.
To clear up any mystery, just check your family history.
Genealogy's the name of the game. Now some ancestors you'll find you want to hide,
but most of them will fill your heart with pride.
Oh, your family tree, your family tree. Check your genealogy, find who was who and how who came to be. On your family, 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 family tree.
Welcome, listeners. It's time for the Genealogy Radio Show, the radio show that's keeping you in the loop, and from the radio station that's keeping you in the loop as well, Radio Corcabashkin. Today we're back for our series of clans and surnames, and it's really great to be back on air. And I've got a wonderful team with me today who are all going to be doing their own radio show on their surnames, and they have a plethora of surnames to share with you. So without any further ado, I'm going to go and introduce them, and they'll each tell you about their little projects, and we'll be exploring those projects all during the course of this season. So we're starting with Aaron Milan.
Hi Lorna.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good, how are you?
Good. Tell us about your surnames and that you're researching.
So my surname is Mullane. Milan comes from the name O'Mullen, which actually originated in Munster, which was quite interesting for us because my family always thought it was of Germanic descent. So for me to find out that it was Munster the entire way through all the variations was really interesting.
That's fantastic. And so you're interested with the source being Limerick, Cork and Clare, I see that. And what's another positive experience of doing your surnames?
So for me, it gave me the chance to explore my family a little deeper because obviously my surname comes from my paternal side, and my grandparents on that side, they died when my father was really young, so I never got to know that side of the family. So for me, this is a chance for me to look into my family and get to know them on a level that I wouldn't have before this. So it was a great chance for me.
And are there an awful lot of Milans in Limerick, Cork and Clare?
There are. They're quite concentrated in Limerick, Cork and Clare on quite a high level.
And what's the name in Irish?
The name in Irish is Mclaughlin.
Mclaughlin, yes. So that's, and do you know the meaning of it yet, or have you researched that?
I haven't actually researched it quite yet, but from what I can see, it has quite a deep history in Limerick and Munster as a whole.
Oh, so that's absolutely fantastic, Aaron, and very interesting because it's through surnames we often find clan origins, and that's what our events are about and our whole research is about in many cases. So I'll move on to Glenn McLoughlin. Now McLoughlin is a very, he's coming home when he's coming here. They took over the burn in the Gragan barony in the 16th century, and a feisty Viking lot in origin, I believe. So Glenn?
Lorna, how are you?
Very well.
Obviously, my surname is McLoughlin. The predominant area study for me was Kilcomman. Both sides of my maternal side of the family come from Kilcomman, and one side of the fraternal.
And just for our listeners, Kilcomman is in County?
It's in Tipperary.
County Tipperary.
Yeah, the North Tipperary Hills.
North Tipperary Hills. Wonderful.
So, as I say, all branches of the family came from Kilcomman, and they have been up there for at least 6 generations. So it was the key area of focus for my research, which made it very, very handy. The second area of study for me was Doon in County Limerick, where my fraternal grandmother was from. So I did a bit of research there as well. Kilcomman is located in the southern foothills of the Silver Mines Mountain, and it's midway between Thurles and Newport. The last known population of it was 290 people, so it's quite small.
Lovely, and lovely detail there, Glenn.
Yeah, it's actually a very, very scenic area as well. At the outset of my research, I was very much reliant on information supplied to me by both my mother and my father. But what I found quite a lot with them was that they had information going back to a certain generation, but from then on, it was very, very sketchy, and I kind of put that down to the famine, and that the horrors that were witnessed during the famine would probably have stopped people from looking back into their ancestors.
That's very true, and they wish to advance as well, and they wanted to forget the horrors, as you've so rightly said.
Yes.
It caused an awful fractured landscape due to emigration and due to loss of life, with over 1 million people dying. So, and it really, really does have to be taken into account. And an excellent source for that is the Atlas of the Great Famine, which is published by Cork University Press. It's a very, very good source indeed. And other sources as well. And so that is very interesting indeed. So we're moving on to Kate Harris. So welcome, Kate.
Hi, Lorna. My research concentrates in Limerick City. I have 3 generations of Harrises that were there from around 1821 to 1969, and then my own family is still there now. I found that a lot of my family lived in tenements. I found that a lot of my family lived in tenement blocks, and my great-grandfather actually lived in a tenement in George's Quay that collapsed.
Okay, yeah.
When it was collapsed, there was nowhere to house them, so they were housed in tents beside the river. And when Éamon de Valera was campaigning there, he happened to see the tents and he asked what they were about, so they got moved. He organised for houses to be built in the castle barracks, and my great-great-grandfather was moved into a house in the castle barracks.
That's fascinating stuff, because Limerick is known for this barracks, and it's also known for the wonderful King John's Castle. And King John's is where we'll be actually holding lifelong learning lectures this year. But King John's, people wouldn't be aware that it was being used for housing and so on. So they got moved when the housing collapsed.
It looks really interesting if you see photos of it, because it's like modern houses inside 13th century castle walls, so you can see like washing lines and stuff inside there. It's really strange to see. Okay,
well, that's very interesting indeed. So just to connect that Harris is a very strong Limerick name, and of course we have a strong connection with Kilkee here with the famous actor as well. So there's different branches of Harrises and printmakers and so on. So we're going to ask for we're going to make a little announcement about our Clans and Surnames event, which we're all working hard on and researching. And we have a lovely advertisement that we're going to play halfway through today, because it's been prepared here at RCB, and it's the launch of our promotion for one of our projects.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you are looking for your ancestors, I can tell you I don't have their details. But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a godsend for people like you. If you don't book your ticket now for the Clans and Surnames Conference in Tipperary, that will be the end of it. But if you do, I will look for you. I will find you. I will find your clan. And I will find your ancestors.
Tickets for the Clans and Surnames 2017 conference and workshops from the 15th to the 19th of May in Neenah, County Tipperary, are now available from www.clansandsurnames.com or email admin@clansandsurnames.com or phone 085 872 1184.
Now we're back again and we've got our other half of the team starting now, and we have a real unusual surname here, both first and second. Quinn Forskitt.
Hi, Lorna. I belong to the Forskitt family tree, which eventually evolved to the name Forskitt due to poverty and illiteracy. I can trace my family back to 1764 with the birth of Thomas Forskitt, who is my great-great-great-grandfather, in Bedfordshire, England. A large proportion of his children and grandchildren had a criminal past, which has led to prison, death and deportation. Along with this, my relatives have had an extensive military career since 1914, and that is still active to the present day. With access to military records, I can track the movement of my 3 great-uncles and their service in France and the Middle East in the First World War. Interestingly enough, my parents are distantly related, and through my maternal grandfather's side, I can travel back to 1676 with John Forskitt, who is the patriarch of a different branch of the Forskitt tree. They lived in Whitechapel, London until the 1950s. This family has fewer fascinating tales of clashes with the law or any military service, but the truth may reveal itself. To water down my Anglo-Saxon and Viking heritage, my maternal grandmother is Irish. Her maiden name is Fitzpatrick, and as part of my project that's dedicated to this, I'll have showed the difficulty of finding records for people living in rural Ireland in the early 19th and 20th centuries.
And that's a very interesting point, Quinn, where you're looking at the duality of your ancestry, and you can go back further on one side than you can in another. People think that it's a seamless horizontal going right back. You find your great-grandparents, you find your great-great-grandparents. You don't. There's going to be pockets and holes and troughs to fill in. There's going to be lies that people tell you. There's going to be mistakes that you make yourself. So it's not for the faint-hearted, but it's definitely for those intrepid explorers of ancestry who want to find out more about their past. So what do you enjoy about your project, Quinn?
I love finding out about the history of my family, and I figured out that I'm a descendant of a thief, and finding newspaper articles about the court trial.
Through the petty court sessions, is it?
Yeah.
Yes, and just for our listeners, I'll just make an announcement that Ancestry is free for the UK and Britain starting from Saturday for 3 days. And Ancestry is very useful for you to go on because you can find links to your Catholic parish registers as well, what's known as the indexes. And this brings you back, dependent on which parish you're looking at, to many centuries as well. So many decades of the last 19th century. So it's really useful. So were you upset when you found out you were descendant from somebody who had been a thief?
Not as upset as his other brothers who did much more devastating crimes.
Yes. So we'll be going into all those explorations, and I know you're going to find it a fascinating journey with our team. So we have another part of our team, and that's Kieran, who has very fascinating surnames to look into.
Hi Lorna. Well, a little bit of background first. I'm from a small village in North Mayo called Knockmore. Typical rural village, everyone knows everyone, a couple of pubs, a shop and a GA club, a very successful one actually. The Walsh family has been there for about 11 generations now, according to, knowledge being passed down between us. For most of that time they were blacksmiths in the village for about 6 generations I think. And we ran the village forge, and of course this was a time where the horse was one of the most important things for getting around, and ploughing fields as well. And but it was family trade for decades, but was put out of business in the 50s with cars coming around and tractors. I knew this all before, but doing my research, I've found a bit more about it. And even this week, I found a picture from I think it was 1923 that my great grandfather, his brother, and my great aunt are in it. Lovely to see something like that.
It's an excellent source, and that's what's wonderful about this project. We've had so much learning with the team here of being able to explore photographs, being able to clean photographs using apps and all sorts of things that are out there. And you have some unusual surnames, though, in your legacy, don't you?
Well, I do. Diamond was one I found. Because I was looking into other sites, and this week I've been trying to find if I have a link to an infamous New York mobster in the 20s, Legs Diamond. He was born in Philadelphia, where my paternal great-grandmother, whose maiden name was Diamond, briefly lived. And I've been looking into other interesting stories.
Because Diamond is an unusual surname, and a unique identifier. What did Legs do, Kieran?
He was a bootlegger, and of course this be during Prohibition, and so it was a big business at the time, and he would have been he would have been one of the biggest mobsters in New York and Philadelphia, you know, in the days.
So
Anyway.
were you terribly upset to find out you could have strong links, and I think you do, to Legs Diamond?
Well, you know, it's an interesting story. It's
Yes. So you see, we all have this in our past, and one of the things I've always said on the genealogy radio show is when the skeletons come out of the closet, they all come out the one day. So do expect to be deluged with all the news that you find. And so you have also a beautiful scenic area in your ancestry as well.
on the other side, my mother's maiden name is Ormsby, and locally there's a very large landed estate called Gertner Abbey. I think some people might have heard of, and this was owned by an Ormsby family. And I think there is a connection, but I haven't worked out where it breaks yet and where it comes. But I'm using like all the sources like census and Griffiths and civil records to see.
Exactly, and I'm delighted to see the confidence that's here with those records. And those records are the census, the 1901 and 1911 census, freely available online through the National Archives of Ireland. The Griffiths valuation, through a couple of sources, Ask About Ireland and Find My Past as well. Both have excellent sources to that. And you can go back then again to the Deplotments, and they vary in age between 1824 and 1838. And those Deplotments are a wealth of information because it's prior to the famine, and you get a great deal more people mentioned in the Deplotments, and they're all different. And you're converting at that time what was paid in living money in hens and geese and ducks into real money, and that's caused the hardship that led to great difficulties with the famine as well. So without further ado, I have a lovely final part of our team today, Patrick, Norris, Cable.
Hi, how you doing? Well, I've got a double barrel name, and it's an unusual Norris and Cable. Norris is the Irish side of my family, and it comes from the Anglo-French word Norre, which in French usually meant northerner or Norman, which leads me to believe that my Irish ancestors originally were the Norman settlers. Norris is only found in Munster, Leinster, Ulster, but not Connacht, which lends further credence to the fact that it must be Norman settlers because they never reached that part of Ireland in their conquest. Cable, however, is my English side of the family, and they've always been in London for as far as I can tell. Cable is an Anglo-Saxon word, so my names have never left these two islands. A cable originally means a rope maker in its Germanic origin, particularly in maritime industry, and seems to be more to the simple surname anyway because it has Germanic origins as well in Cabel, which means it means the son of Cable. So it's very simple and easy to learn.
Fascinating stuff, and I know you have such a beautiful legacy in photographs because you've shown them, and Patrick is cleaning up those photographs and using apps and all sorts of technology to do that. And how are you getting on with that, Patrick?
Yes, I've actually got a wealth of photographs that we found. Some of them go back to 1900. I've got one that was from 1860, and we spent I spent a lot of time cleaning these up on Photoshop and everything like that, and these really it's amazing what you can find in the attics. I found the one from 1860 was my many greats, but going back outside their house in Wales, outside the mining village, and it was completely destroyed, the picture, and it took me 4.5 hours, but you cleaned it up and it's completely clear now using the sites I used, mainly Photoshop and the cleaning abilities on it.
Excellent skills there. And also I'll be getting Patrick, as he's training further along with me, to look at the different types of photography that happen according to the decades, because this is what dates the photograph for you. So if you don't have a date of a photograph, knowing which technique was used to make that photograph will give you the clue, and that's the next part of Patrick's journey. So he just didn't know that till now, but he knows it now. There's a lot of work when you're dealing with the wonderful legacy of a visual identifier and so on. So that is a wonderful interview today with everybody, and I know you're all going to be looking forward to each of our shows on that, and they'll be coming to you through Radio Corkabashkin. And you can call us at 065 9083 022. Text us at 089 422 8491. You can also email us info@genealogy.ie. at rcb.ie. And most of all, you can tune in to all our other wonderful shows online at www.rcb.ie. You can tune in also through the radio app, following us through Facebook, RCB Radio, so RCBRAIDIO, or the Twitter handle, RAIDIOCB. So that's absolutely wonderful, and that's all for today, and we'll talk next week.
Did you ever stop and wonder if you could be related to everyone with your last name?
Just think if you're a Lincoln, how you'd be congratulated if Honest Abe were someone you could claim.
To clear up any mystery, just check your family history.
Genealogy's the name of the game. Now some ancestors you'll find you want to hide,
but most of them will fill your heart with pride.
Oh, your family tree, your family tree. Check your genealogy, find who was who and how who came to be. On your family tree.